Welcome to Let's Talk Ball. I'm Thad Brown along with Carl Jones. Every single week we watch the Bills all 22 film, have thoughts, observations, different opinions about what we see. Today we're going to talk about Bills and Patriots. Here's our opinion. It wasn't that big a deal. Fortunately, we have other things to talk about. We're going to get into a big picture playoff preview, important things about the Bills going into the postseason, who we think is going to carry this team, who we think might hold them back, a couple other fun categories to talk about. And of course, we're going to talk about Bills and Broncos, how these two teams match up, and why the Bills actually look even better when you start breaking down position by position stuff. But first, Carl, let's just talk about Patriots real quick. Give me your initial thoughts of the game. And I think we'll start in the defensive secondary where you specialize. And also because it was one of the few spots where the Bills actually played players who we might see in the playoffs.
I was locked in on Cole Bishop. It was an opportunity for him to get a bunch of reps. And I don't want to call it an audition because Sean McDermott kind of nipped that in the bud Monday when he spoke to the media. But it was a situation for at least us, another opportunity to see him get an ample amount of snaps. And once again, it was a game where there was some stuff that he needs to clean up. But there is one thing that pops that is very different than Damar Hamlin, and that's his athleticism. I mean, when he sees something, he triggers and he can cover a lot of ground. The one play that sticks out was his pass breakup in the end zone, I believe, on I don't know which running back it was, but he basically buzzed down to the flat as they curl flat defender. He noticed that the running back was going up the sidelines. He had the good hips, good athleticism to match him step for step. It was honestly a decent throw by Joe Milton. Cole Bishop was there to break that up. Stuff like that is encouraging for whenever Cole Bishop is going to be the full-time starting safety. I like those plays for sure.
Absolutely an athletic play that stuck out, and his ability to stick to that all the way down the field. I thought it was a really good throw, maybe even a great throw. And if Bishop is not there to get in the way, that's probably a touchdown. On the flip side, there was a play action pass where it was in the fourth quarter. I don't remember, they had two back-to-back, like 20-yard plays, one to Bell, one to Booty, whatever his name is. And that was one where you could see the inexperience because he, as you said, triggered on the run and then got caught in no man's land and not only got caught, but didn't know what to do. And I don't think he's going to help anyway, but you can see the indecision there, the rookie. Regardless, I'm with you. The athleticism has been there just about every single time he plays in the game. And, you know, on the flip side, Damar Hamlin, who played 100% of snaps in this game, was not impressive. Now, look, this game had zero game planning. I don't know what the Bills were trying to get done with him. He did blatantly miss a tackle late in the game. But for the most part, he and even Taylor Rapp just looked like they were out there getting a run in, you know, building the old cardio up and didn't really make too many plays. Like you said, Sean McDermott made it clear on Monday that Damar Hamlin is still the starter. And this was, I didn't think this was a tryout anyway, but he didn't look great. And there wasn't much from this that I'm encouraged by. And I think if you want to, you know, continue to guys who maybe not were on a tryout, but you want to see more from, Keon Coleman was the other one for me, you know, who just really continued to show a lack of separation. He doesn't impress you down the field, had a couple decent plays and had a crosser where he got away okay. Had another one that either Mike White or Mitch Trubisky, I think it was White, blatantly overthrew him on when he was wide open. So it's the same old Keon Coleman, which is fine. But I think when you look at this guy in the postseason, Carl, this is not a guy that I'm going to trust on the field in a high leverage spot right now.
Yeah, I'm right with you. And I know some people at home are going to say, well, he had Mike White and Mitchell Trubisky throwing him the football. It won't be Josh Allen. I get you. And there is some truth to that. However, he was running low percentage routes anyways, a lot of fades, stops, comebacks, where the percentage of the catch from a receiver's perspective is probably more 60-40 as opposed to maybe some of a slant or a dig where maybe increase up to 80. I say that because I don't know if he can run the other routes at an effective rate anyways. So they don't ask him to run slants. They don't ask him to run digs or anything in breaking because it's not a strength of his, regardless of who's at quarterback. And I think that was more concerning for me in a game where it was a dress rehearsal, nothing mattered. I wanted to see more of the route tree. You know what? I want to see you do stuff that you're not comfortable with. And the fact that they didn't really ask him to do that in a game that doesn't matter, that lit up some alarm bells for me going forward and however many games the Bills have left.
There's a lot of time for Keon Coleman to develop into a high-level receiver. It doesn't have to be this January. He is still going to be a part of the rotation for sure. He's going to get snaps. He's going to get opportunities to make plays. But if you're going to make a pecking order, or if it's like I said, a high-leverage 4th and 5, got to have it play, I don't think Keon's a guy you want on the field right now. The one other observation from this game that I got to talk about, Joe Milton blew me away on film. Oh, my goodness, was he good. The 35-yard laser beam into the corner to Demario Douglas. It wasn't complete. It wouldn't have counted anyway because of holding penalty. Amazing throw. He had two on the run to his left that he made. I thought the Cole Bishop play was a great throw. He had another one where Jamarcus Ingram had pretty good coverage. He still stuck it in a small window. Look, this is a 6'5" guy with athleticism. I think Joe Milton is going to have a really good chance next year to be a week one starter for someone, in part because there ain't that many quarterbacks available. But this guy to me showed me a ton in this game. And I think if you're a Bills fan, the most likely scenario is the Patriots trade high on this and get him out of the division. You might want to be thankful for that, even on the team that already has Drake May.
I found this game from Joe Milton so fascinating because for people who watched him in college, you're like, yeah, we've seen this before, whether it was at Michigan or Tennessee, the high leverage plays and all of the high potential that he possesses, where he has a cannon. There was a bowl game practice where I think he threw the ball like 95 yards or something ridiculous like that, where he threw an orange like 95 yards. And then you see him down to down at Tennessee and at Michigan, where you're like, okay, whatever, what's going on. And then fast forward to the draft cycle this past offseason. And then, yes, on Sunday, NFL people fall in love with him. And it's just so funny how the two worlds collide. And like, man, he can be so polarizing in either way. And I thought that was really cool to watch him on Sunday, especially in a moment where it was an audition for him to go out to the other 31 teams in the league and say, hey, come get me. I'm trying to be a player.
Whether he's ever going to be good or not, who knows? But he certainly capitalized on that audition. You got to appreciate that. And I know no one probably appreciates it more than Robert Kraft, who's about to find a free draft pick in his pocket from the way Joe Milton played, I think, on Sunday. All right, let's get off this game. Like you said, it didn't matter. Let's move on to the postseason. I want to start with a big picture. We've got 4 categories of items we're going to talk about. We'll go category by category, kind of explaining the rules as we go. The first thing is, which player or unit, if you want, do you want to see more from in this postseason? You can kind of define and take the word more however you want. Carl, you are the guest here on this podcast, so you will get to, if it were flipping a coin, choose heads or tails. You get to go first for this category.
I want to see more out of Amari Cooper. And it's not a player who I think who is disappointed as a Bill, but I don't think he's reached the expectations that he had upon him when he was traded for back in October. When the Bills got him, he was a player who you like, you know what? He can separate. He can win on the 3rd and 6. He can go in a quick slant. He can run on a stop route curl, stuff of that nature. And he has been able to do that at times in a Bills uniform. Just the volume isn't there. And there's some games where he hasn't gotten a target, period. Think back to the Lions game. I know they put up 40-some points, so it's not like a knock on him per se. But in the postseason, it's players over plays. I always believe that the coaches set the floor of your franchise in terms of the regular season. A good coaching staff, good organization, they're going to always make sure that you get to a certain amount of wins. The bottom's never going to fall out. But the players set the ceiling. And I think that you can give Joe Brady all of his flowers for how he's constructed this offense and put players in the best positions to succeed. But when you get to the postseason, the other teams have fantastic defensive coordinators as well. And I think that's something where I'm like, you know what? You need your player to make plays. And that's what you got Amari Cooper for back in October. I want to see more and see the players that the Bills were envisioning when they got him in October.
The reason Amari Cooper is a good answer to this question is because he's probably the only guy on offense where you feel like there's a significant amount of more left. And this is a credit to Joe Brady. You take a look at the other receiving options. A lot of guys have taken jumps this year. Khalil Shakir is up. James Cook is up. Ty Johnson, Ray Davis have been excellent out of the backfield. It's hard to imagine, offensive line too, it's hard to imagine getting more out of those guys. But Amari Cooper, a guy who's been a number 1 receiver, maybe not a top 10 receiver, but a really good number 1 receiver recently in the NFL. We haven't seen it much in Buffalo. I think if he can find that extra, few notches in the postseason, it could go a long way for the Bills. My guy that I want to see more from is Terrell Bernard. This is a linebacker who in the past, recently, obviously last year, has been a playmaker. And look, he's done it a bit this year. Great interception against the Chiefs. But I think when you look at that linebacker group with Matt Milano still kind of finding his legs, with Dorian Williams improving, but still trying to find a way to understand the game, Terrell Bernard is the guy who I think is most likely to be able to create those big plays, those turnover plays, even, sacks if the Bills want to use him blitzing more often. We might talk about that in a little bit here too. Bernard, to me, on defense, is the guy of all the group, and there are other choices you could have made here, to where I can see him having an impact play or making impact plays consistently enough in the postseason to change the outlook for the Bills, the fortune for the Bills as they go through this playoff.
Players over plays. Terrell Bernard, he's one of the few guys on that defense who can go above and beyond what Bobby Babbage or Sean McDermott calls on any given snap.
Our next category is, what do we want to see the Bills try this postseason. This is a scheme, a tactic, a strategy. You went first last time. I'll go first this time. I've been harping on it all year. It's variety in the run game, but specifically, I want to see more of the trapping and wham stuff that we saw the Bills kind of flirt with end of the year. This has been a group that has offensive linemen, specifically tackles, that have shown athletic ability. They can get down the line of scrimmage. They can lead guys through the hole over there on the other side. And we haven't seen a ton of trapping and stuff. This is an opportunity to put Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown in different looks, but still take advantage of the strengths they've already shown. In addition, Dawson Knox has not had a superb year when it comes to being a blocker, but as a trapper or as a puller, I think you might put him even in a better situation. So to me, this piles on what we've talked about all year, where the run game's good, but they kind of rely on the same couple of schemes and techniques. Now you add a little more, but you add without taking your offensive line and putting them in a spot where they're not comfortable.
There was a game down the stretch. I forget exactly which one it was. It might have been the Lions, where you did see some variety on what they were. It was the Lions, actually. It was the Lions, where you saw some of that variety in what the offensive line can do. And I'm going to touch on them a little bit later, but I think that that's a unit that you can really have some fun with, especially this late in the postseason, where you are going up against really good run defenses for sure. From my perspective and what I want to see the Bills do, more man coverage. And I know, man, it's Sean McDermott style defense. They live in this zone world. You're right. They play a lot of it, one of the higher rates in all of football. But when I looked up these statistics, it kind of blew me back a little bit. The Bills play man on 20% of their defensive snaps. That if you were to guess EPA per dropback, which basically means expected play point average, basically how good they are. Where do you think they rank?
When they're in man only?
Man.
If Kyer Elam were a bigger part of this defense, I'd go higher. But I'm going to say, look, Benford and Douglas have been very good this year. I'm going to say they still rank top 10. I'm going to go bottom top 10, like 7th or 8th.
They're the second best team when playing man coverage this year.
All right.
And this isn't a small sample size because they played almost 1,100 snaps of football this year. On the flip side, they play zone at an 80% clip. They have been the second worst team in zone this year. Now, those numbers, adding some context to those, a lot of those numbers are skewed on third down. And on third down, they play a lot of man. On first and second down, they play a lot of zone. Put 2 and 2 together, and you see why in the world one thing is working, the other thing is not. I just want to see them leaning more into their strengths. They have a really outstanding quarterback in Christian Benford. Rasul Douglas has played well of late, maybe at a more steady level. Taron Johnson is an all-pro caliber player. I trust a Matt Milano, more so a Terrell Bernard in space as well with man coverage. I think you lean into it, especially in the AFC where there aren't really many high-power receiver units. And I think that's the more important part of this. The Broncos aren't going to trot out the Cincinnati Bengals receiving core. The Ravens won't, and the Chiefs won't either. Lean into that. I think those DBs can take you home.
You're more likely to win that way too, just like you said, because you have the opportunity against lesser receivers. It kind of fits nicely with one of the things I considered for this category was more attacking with the linebackers, more blitzing. Well, if you want to play more man behind it, it does give you the opportunity, if you want, to send an athletic guy like a Milano or a Bernard. The one thing let me push back a little bit here on what you said. The Bills are one of the worst third down defenses in the NFL, at least in terms of allowing it. So although the EPA per dropback numbers are good, if they're playing man a lot on third down and failing on third down, the numbers aren't jiving right there.
That is true. But when the numbers get so wonky and stuff, when it's third and long, they're awful, like historically awful. I'm talking about the next gen era dating back to 2018. A team who has even made it to the Super Bowl, their third and long numbers are in their own stratosphere are awful. Third and anything less than that, they're good. So I think the third and long numbers are skewing everything so darn bad that the rest of the third down stuff, and that kind of computes because whenever the Bills are facing 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 situations, they're either stuffing the run or they're getting teams off the field. Third and long, though, ooh, Lord have mercy. It's like, I don't know, Ohio State versus Oregon, if y'all saw that college game the other day. It's bombs away the teams that are attacking the Bills defense. So I would lean more into man, though, but I see your point.
The other part of it, too, is, and I don't know if this is correct, but it feels like anecdotally, 3rd and 2 to 4, they're playing man more. When it's 3rd and 15, they're dropping into soft zone to where they can get picked apart. All right, let's move on here. Next category. Who do we think is most likely to carry the Bills or person or unit to a Super Bowl appearance at least? Carl, you can go first on this one.
I'm going to go with the Bills offensive line. And this is a unit that since week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals, who don't have a good pass rush, but I noticed it then, they look different and at a much higher level this year. You pointed to it a little bit in terms of the variety of the run game. They can really weaponize those dudes, whether that's Deion Dawkins on the perimeter. Spencer Brown is athletic as well. You can lean on a Connor McGovern as well as Saibo and David Edwards. And then bringing in Alec Edwards as well as your 6 offensive linemen. You can lean on that bunch, especially with the fronts they're going to see from this point going forward. The Denver Broncos, they're going to bring some dudes with Zach Allen, Nick Bonino, Jonathan Cooper. Presumably the Ravens next week, they got an all-pro up front and some other dudes around them. I don't need to tell you about the Chiefs. I think this is a unit you can really lean on. And I know playoff football, trenches this, trenches that. It bodes well, and it's true this time of year. Josh Allen's a dude. He makes everyone look better around them. But I just want to give this unit their flowers a little bit because they've been a top 10, top 5 unit all year long. And if you ask anyone on the outside, it's Josh Allen and me and you out there blocking for him.
Exactly. But, to your point about the caliber of defensive lines they will likely face in the postseason, this almost has to be the unit, right? That carries them. Like if the offensive line doesn't carry them, then who will? Now I've got another suggestion, but again, I'm with you. This was a group I considered. I think specifically in the run game, this needs to be a spot where the Bills are succeeding over the next 3 weeks. For me, the person that I think is most likely to carry the Bills is Greg Rousseau. And the main reason I say that is because we've already seen him do it against a team they're probably going to see in the playoffs, which is the Chiefs. I mean, that win over the Chiefs was buoyed and almost carried by number 50. The offense was great in that game, but defensively, he was the thing that kept Kansas City from attacking open receivers that were running free all night long against the Bills secondary. Now, the caliber of tackle he's going to see is going to be a little bit better this postseason. The Broncos have a ridiculous offensive line. The Ravens are really good. And obviously the Chiefs, who still have Jawan Taylor on one side that Rousseau can take advantage of, have seemingly fixed the left tackle by putting Joe Thuney there. I actually looked this up, Carl. Pro Football Focus ranks those 3 offensive lines all among the top 7 in the NFL. So it will be, like we just talked about with the Bills O-line winning against big-time opponents, Greg Rousseau is going to have to do the same thing. I thought about Ed Oliver here simply because if he steps up and plays like Ed Oliver that we've seen before, he can be a guy that carries the Bills. But Greg Rousseau has been the dependable one all year long.
He's like we've talked about it ad nauseum. He may not be Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, or Trey Hendrickson, but he's in that tier right below. I'm not going to say, hey, y'all, let me get into that party right with y'all. And I think he's played fantastic this year.
Final category for looking at the big picture playoffs for the Bills, which unit or player is most likely to hold the Bills back? And for this one with me, I went with a wide receiver group, which, we talked about Amari Cooper as a guy who we want to see more of. You really could probably apply that to the entire receiving group. I don't know if we'll be able to, because other than Cooper and Keon Coleman, this has been a group that, a lot like last year, consistently does not separate often enough. Especially later in the year, it's felt like there have been too many plays where Josh Allen drops back and has to do the hero scramble stuff to be able to find throws. I think Joe Brady's done a better job this year of scheming up plays, of allowing his receivers to take advantage of not only man-to-man crossers that just confuse the defense enough to break guys open, but the dig routes, the stuff where, receivers have an advantage. The Bills have done a nice job with that. They've also done a good job of utilizing Khalil Shakir and a couple other guys in screens. But in general, when it comes to straight up drop back pass offense, the Bills just have not showed the weapons at receiver to where, even if the defense plays as well as we think it can, I don't know if this is a unit that can shut opposing offenses down, especially as good as the Ravens and maybe the Chiefs currently that the Bills might see, or even want to get to the Super Bowl, Detroit and Philly. So this offense is going to have to be, to me, the offense is the fastball. And if the receivers don't get open, you're asking too much out of James Cook and Josh Allen in this scheme.
Man, it sounds like a story we've heard the past 2 postseasons with Stephon Diggs taking the dip in the 2023 season as well. That was my second choice, but I feel you 100% on that with players over plays. This time of year, Joe Brady has done a phenomenal job, but Steve Spagnuolo's on the other side. My man he's been there before. He's been there, done that. I'm sure he knows how to, second time around, know how to combat that unit. Vance Joseph, a fantastic defensive coordinator for the Broncos. We'll see how he weaponizes his secondary. It's a unit where they're going to have to really step up, and somebody going to have to take the big piece of chicken this week. I know that. I know everybody can't be getting full off the sides in the postseason. Somebody got to want to, get the big piece and, put a little ranch on it. I'm sorry, y'all don't like ranch on y'all chicken, but that's how I'll get down.
Before you move on, you got to explain this chicken reference, by the way, because it's worth 2 minutes here.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody eats. Y'all, this is the mantra that everyone's talking about with the Bills, where like they're sharing the wealth throughout the offense. Well, for me, growing up, and I know a lot of households as well, Pops always got the big piece of chicken. He ate first. Everyone else, you can get the sides. Me and my sister lean up on the mashed potatoes and the sweet potato yams and collard greens and all that stuff. But Pops gets the biggest portion because he's the big dog in the house. And when you apply that to the Bills receiver room, they don't really have a big dog. Like Stephon Diggs was that in the past. Stephon Diggs got a big piece of chicken. Everyone else, you get the little drumsticks and the sides. This year, I guess Josh Allen just putting a big piece over on the side and saying, y'all fetch and eat the sides or whatever. I say all that to say, in the postseason, you generally need a top dog and someone to be a dude. And as currently constructed going into the postseason, they don't have that.
All right, let's move on. Your person or unit that you think is most likely to hold the Bills back this playoff?
It's the unit I think that's held them back over the past 3 or 4 years, and that's the defensive tackle group. The spine of the defense has always been something this season that I thought has been a weakness, especially with Matt Milano being out, coming back, not necessarily being the same. Right up the middle when I mean the spine. The D tackles, linebackers, back to the safeties, but it starts up front with those two guys in Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. I took a quick look at the rushing totals from their last 4 exits. Mind you, the Bengals nor Chiefs are the Rams or like some triple option team that just loves to hammer the ball down your throat. These teams want to live with the ball in Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow's hands. Having said that, last year, 6.1 yards to carry for 146 yards on the ground. 2022, it was a snow globe game, but the Bengals can't run the rock. They had backup linemen in that game, if you don't forget. 172 yards. That is unacceptable for the Cincinnati Bengals. 2021, I know they put up 42 points or whatever, but they still had 182 rushing yards. The Chiefs did. Then the year before that, they had 114. The run game starts with those two. It really starts with those two up front because Greg Rousseau has been there the entire way, and he's a phenomenal edge run defender. You need those two to hold their weight and make sure that they can take on a double team to allow Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard to get downhill. Because if they don't, those guards and tackles are going to be hugging Milano and Terrell Bernard and Taron Johnson all game, and that's going to lead to 4, 5, 6, and leading to a 15-yard rushing game. 15 rushing yard carry that's going to hurt the Bills like we've seen in the past 4 postseasons.
Those numbers are incredibly eye-opening in a passing-heavy league to think about how much run defense issues have been a problem for the Bills in the postseason. And for sure, defensive tackle was high on my list for this category. I also thought about safety for this list too. But I think, like you said, and, a lot of these things we're talking about, offensive line, Greg Rousseau, defensive tackles, run game, a lot of this in terms of being able to win at this level, it starts up front and it starts with, being able to win the trenches. And the Bills have not done a good enough job of that in the games they have lost over the recent years. Now, let's move it along to the Denver Broncos. A perfect segue because Denver, you'll hear about the defense and the pass rush, and that's obviously a big part of it, but they are really, really good up front on both sides of the ball. And Carl, you think that in a lot of ways, and not surprisingly, this is going to go a long way towards deciding Sunday's game.
Yeah, I'm going to start on the Broncos' offensive side of the ball. Garrett Bowles is one of the best tackles in football. Quinn Miners is a really good guard. According to ESPN's metrics, and they do some composite things, but it's generally accurate, they have the best pass pro offensive line in football. Some of that is due to the fact they get the ball out so quick, but some of that is judged on winning and win rate. And I think that's going to go a long way in deciding how this game goes, because if you're going to allow a rookie quarterback like Bo Nix to drop back and not feel pressure, I don't care how young he is. I don't care how many experienced secondaries that he hasn't seen yet. Anybody can feel good back there when they're comfortable. And I think that's going to be one of the deciding factors in how that game goes Sunday afternoon.
That was one of the things that stood out to me watching Broncos games recently is how much time Bo Nix has, how not only time, but how clean the pocket is. There are multiple plays where he's dropping back and he has yards of room and opportunities to scramble too. This is a guy that can weaponize his legs, can make plays on the ground. And when you're getting wide open lanes to scramble into, that is a big part of being able to make plays at quarterback. I've talked with some of the Bills offensive line when it comes to blocking for Josh Allen. And one of the points they make is, look, obviously you want to have that perfect pocket where you just keep that defensive lineman in front of you the whole time. But if he's going to beat you, which happens because the other guys get paid too, at least give Josh Allen a choice. Give him an out. Push that defensive lineman to one direction so that Allen can see it and get around me and escape with a scramble. Well, Bo Nix has the same thing going for him with that offensive line, and it makes a big, big deal. To me, one of the things that stands out with this game is that beyond the offensive line, the Bills seem to have cover for the other things the Broncos do well. The Broncos D-line is ridiculous. Well, that's fine. The Bills' offensive line is really good. They can and should, for the most part, be able to negate that. The Broncos have Pat Surtain, like you brought up. That's great, but which not great receiver that the Bills have are you going to put him on? And I don't mean not great bad. I mean like not great, not stand out, not obviously the number one that you want to put your lockdown corner on. Another thing, like you said, that the Broncos do a lot is get the ball out quickly. That often involves quick game throws to running backs out of the backfield. Well, Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano are uniquely athletic to be able to handle that. And also the Bills over the years have done a good job of attacking running backs out of the backfield by not letting the running back come to them. You use the linebacker to attack, grab that guy at the line of scrimmage, prevent him from even getting into a route. So these are all Bronco strength, Bronco strength, Bronco strength that plays into what the Bills do well. Even Cortland Sutton as a playmaking receiver, the Bills have the corners on both sides of the field to handle Sutton one-on-one. So as much as I think the Broncos are going to be a headache in this game, it feels like the X and O's point to the Bills when you look at all the things the Broncos are supposed to do well.
Yeah, their best players, whether that's a Nick Bonito, a Cortland Sutton, a Pat Surtain, should in theory be neutralized because either A, they're going up against a player who you aren't really taking away from the Bills' attack anyways in Pat Surtain, or B, Cortland Sutton and Nick Bonito going up against Bills players who they feel comfortable in their own right. So wonky things can happen. It's the postseason, but the Bills are 8.5-point favorites for a reason. And it's not just because they have 17 back there at quarterback.
And, you know, we haven't even talked about the fact that this is still Sean McDermott and the way he's dominated rookie quarterbacks, facing another rookie quarterback again. This is a road playoff game for a rookie, which I don't care how good the defense is on the other side. It ain't easy for those guys. So there are so many little things that seem to point to the Bills having the advantages here. I think that the one concern is this Bills defense in a lot of ways has lived on turnovers this year. If they don't get them for some reason and the Broncos can play straight up and stay comfortable in this game, you give Denver a chance to steal it. Because look, Denver has accomplished all they need to accomplish this year. They're rolling in with house money. They made the playoffs when no one thought they would. They don't have to win this game. Don't lose 40-0, but anything competitive is a win for Denver. So the longer you keep them hanging around, the more they feel like, let's just go out and win this thing. What the heck? So that to me is another part of this for the Bills, being able to take control early and show that, hey, this is a different level and a different speed than what you guys have seen all year.
You know I love boxing, and I'm going to bring an analogy for you. Do not let the Broncos beat you with the jab. I don't care what it, and their jab is quick game, screens, stuff of that nature. And they can live in that world. I believe they're the best screen team in football. But take that away in some way, shape, or form. Force Bo Nix to pull out the haymaker, the left hook, the Mississippi to New York. Force him to live in that world. Because if he beats you in that way, hey, man, tip your cap. The boy ain't did that all year. He did it in the postseason. Good for him. But you cannot get beat by the jab. Whenever you watch a boxing fight, man, he keep hitting you with this. I know that's annoying. Well, I mean, you let that go to the judges in the fourth quarter. God knows what can happen. You take away some of the easy stuff that the Broncos live in, I think they'll be all right.
That's a great analogy and a great way to look at this game. All right, I'm all set. You good with the Broncos? We all out of stuff to talk about here?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I got to talk about Pat Surtain more often because you know I love watching him play. But he ain't really going up against nobody that I need to dive into. So sorry, Pat Surtain. That's the Bills' problem, not me.
All right, well, hopefully the Bills, if they do win this game, it'll be a matchup with the Ravens next week. And boy, we will have some stuff to dig into with that. But as always, remember, you can watch Let's Talk Ball at rochesterfirst.com. On that website, click on the sports tab. We're at 8 Sports Extra. It's on WIVB.com. And you can also find us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. No matter what, Carl and I will be back next week either to break down the stunning loss or to discuss a win and to look forward to an incredible matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. Until then, for Carl, I'm Thad. Thanks for watching and listening to Let's Talk Ball.